I was holding a grocery receipt in one hand and my cracked phone in the other when my sister whispered, "If mom asks, tell her I'm still in school." And I stayed quiet. What I didn't say in that moment didn't just protect her, it trapped me. My name is Waverly. I'm 24 and I work as a hospital admissions coordinator, the person who smiles at families while their lives fall apart. My sister and I were never the hugging type. We weren't enemies either. Just two girls raised in the same house with the same rules, learning early that attention was a limited resource and praise had to be earned. She was the charming one. I was the reliable one. She could talk her way out of anything, and I could swallow my feelings until my throat burned. That's why, when she cornered me in our parents' kitchen 2 months earlier, her voice shaking like she'd actually learned fear, I believed her. "I messed up," she said, eyes glossy. "Please, just keep this between us until I figure it out." I assumed she meant a breakup, a bad grade, some messy, normal mistake. Then she slid her laptop toward me, and I saw an email thread with the registrar. Words like withdrawal and non-payment and academic dismissal sitting there, dead and undeniable. She hadn't taken a semester off. She hadn't been considering a different major. She'd been out for a while. My stomach dropped because our parents didn't do gentle disappointment. They did consequences. They did cold silence. They did. After everything we've sacrificed, she grabbed my wrist. "Mom will destroy me. Dad will stop speaking to me. I just need time. I'm applying for jobs. I'm going to fix it. But you cannot tell them. You can't." I should have said no. I should have pushed her hand away and told her to be an adult. But she looked small for the first time in my life, so I nodded. And the next day, the lying started. At first, it was little things. "Tell mom I'm at the library. If dad asks, say my professor moved the exam. If they mention tuition, just tell them the portal is slow." Every time she asked, she said it like it was temporary, like it would be over next week, but it didn't end. Our mother began to notice the details the way she always did. The way she noticed when the groceries were more expensive, when the hallway light was left on, when someone's smile didn't reach their eyes. She noticed my sister wasn't leaving early anymore. She noticed the campus hoodie stayed on the chair, untouched, like a prop. She noticed the way my sister flinched when the mail came. Then one afternoon I walked in and found my mom at the dining table, sorting envelopes with a tight mouth. She didn't look up. "Did your sister mention anything about financial aid?" My heart did a stupid panicked leap. I forced myself to sound bored. "Not really." My mom's fingers tapped the table. Tap, 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 because the billing office called. They said there was a problem verifying something. She told me it was a scam. I felt sweat prick under my collar. My sister had told me that call didn't matter. She hadn't told me the billing office had spoken to our mother. I swallowed. Maybe they called the wrong number. My mom finally looked up. Her eyes were soft, but her voice wasn't. "Waverly, if something is going on, you can tell me. I'm not stupid." I wanted to say it wasn't my secret. I wanted to say it wasn't fair. I wanted to set the weight down and walk away. But I remembered my sister's face. And I remembered every time my parents had punished truth like it was betrayal. So I lied again. That night, I texted my sister and told her mom was suspicious. I told her I couldn't keep doing this. I told her it was eating me alive. Her reply came fast, like she'd been waiting to shut me down. "Stop being dramatic. It's not about you. Just stick to the story. Stick to the story." Like we were characters in her little play. After that, she stopped even pretending to include me. I'd get vague 2-word updates. "Job interview. Busy today? Later." But the favors kept coming. "Pick up mail before mom sees it. Tell dad I'm studying with a friend. If mom asks why I'm home, say my class got canceled." I started to feel less like a sister and more like an accessory. The useful one, the one who absorbs the consequences so she doesn't have to. And the worst part was how quickly my own parents began to look at me differently. Not with anger, with confusion, with that quiet hurt that says, "I thought you were honest with me." One evening, my dad called me into the garage while he pretended to organize tools. That's how he did difficult conversations. Hands busy, heart guarded. "Your sister's been acting strange," he said, eyes fixed on a wrench. "Your mother's worried." I kept my face neutral. "She's stressed." He nodded slowly. "And you? You seem stressed too." My throat tightened. Work's been a lot. He didn't buy it. He never did, not really. He just decided whether to push. He set the wrench down carefully. "I'm going to ask you something, and I want a straight answer. Is she lying to us?" My chest felt hollow. I could hear the refrigerator hum through the wall. I could smell motor oil and cold air. I could feel my own heartbeat trying to climb out of my ribs. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to protect myself. I wanted to protect my parents from the moment that would change the way they looked at her forever. So I did what I'd gotten good at. I stayed calm. I stayed quiet. I said, "You should talk to her." My dad stared at me for a long second, and I knew I'd answered him. That night, the house turned sharp. My mom confronted my sister in the living room. I heard my sister deny. I heard my mom say, "Don't do that to me." Heard my sister cry in a way that sounded like anger more than fear. I heard my dad's voice get low, the way it did when he was trying not to explode. I stayed upstairs in my old bedroom, sitting on the edge of my childhood bed, staring at the same cracked phone screen that suddenly felt like a confession. My sister burst into my room when it was over. Her eyes were red, but her voice was ice. "You told them." "I didn't," I said, and hated how weak it sounded. "I didn't say it." "You did." She stepped closer, finger pointed like a knife. "You made it obvious. You couldn't just keep your mouth shut." I felt something in me snap, but quietly. No screaming, no tears, just a clean little break. "I tried," I said. "I told you I couldn't keep doing this." She scoffed. "You always do this. You always want to be the good one." That hit harder than it should have, because it was partly true. I had spent my whole life surviving by being good, by being useful, by being quiet. She leaned in, voice low. "You ruined my timing. You ruined my plan." "What plan?" I asked before I could stop myself. She hesitated. Just for a second, and in that second, my eyes dropped dropped to her laptop she'd slammed onto my desk. The screen was still open, a bank page, a recent transfer, a name I didn't recognize. My sister followed my gaze and her hand snapped the laptop shut. Too fast, too protective. That was the moment my tiredness turned into suspicion. Because dropping out was one thing, lying about it was another. But money moving around in secret, money our parents thought was going to tuition, my sister grabbed her bag. Don't text me. Don't talk to me. You're dead to me right now. She left, slamming my door so hard the walls shook. I sat there for a long time, breathing through the tightness in my chest, trying to tell myself I hadn't done anything unforgivable. But my mom knocked softly and came in. Her face looked older than it had a week ago. She sat beside me and took my hand the way she used to when I was sick. Sweetheart, she said quietly, how long have you known? I froze. And then because I couldn't stand lying to her anymore, I said, long enough. My mom closed her eyes like she was praying for patience. She says she's been paying things. She says she had help. She says you were involved. My stomach dropped. What? My mom opened her eyes. She said you knew where the money went. My sister had just lit a match and tossed it at me. Hold on, tiny break. I read the comments when I'm worn out, and seeing your location reminds me I'm not telling these stories into an empty room. Like, subscribe, and drop your city, state, or country. Now, here's what happened next. All right. Now let me take you back, because the truth is I hadn't just been keeping a secret. I'd been walking through a maze she built on purpose, and I didn't realize it until I saw that bank transfer with a stranger's name on it. The next morning, I woke up early before anyone else. I made coffee I didn't want. My hands were steady, but my insides weren't. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I didn't go looking for revenge. Not at first. I went looking for reality. I searched the family email on the shared computer my parents still used for bills. I looked for anything from the school. I looked for anything from financial aid. I looked for anything my sister might have deleted and forgotten to empty from trash. And there it was. A confirmation email for a refund. A refund sent after withdrawal. A refund with an account number ending in digits I didn't recognize. But I didn't need to recognize them to understand what it meant. Tuition money had been sent back. And it didn't go back to my parents. It went somewhere else. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. And the only thing I could hear was my sister's voice in my head. Stick to the story. I didn't cry. I didn't storm into her room. I didn't call her a thief. I did what she taught me to do my whole life. I got quiet. I started taking screenshots. I saved emails. I wrote dates and words in my notes so I could track the timeline without forgetting. I pulled bank statements my parents had access to and compared them to the refund notice. Then I saw something that made my hands finally shake. The stranger's name from her laptop wasn't a stranger at all. It was the name of the person our parents trusted most with money. Our uncle, my dad's brother. And suddenly my sister's plan made terrifying sense. I sat there with my laptop open, the blue light making the kitchen feel colder than it was. My first instinct was to slam it shut and pretend I had never seen any of it. The refund email, the account number, my uncle's name hiding in plain sight like a joke I was too slow to catch. But my mother's words from the night before kept replaying in my head. She says you were involved. I pictured my sister telling that lie with the same sweet face she used when she wanted something. I pictured my parents choosing to believe her, because believing your younger child is easier than believing someone you raised could turn into a stranger. My throat tightened, not from guilt, from the realization that my sister had already started writing the story where I was the villain. I closed my laptop and breathed slow, in through my nose, out through my mouth. At the hospital, that's how I survived angry families and bad news. Stay calm, stay useful. Keep your voice steady so other people don't fall apart. So I did the same thing at home. I made breakfast like nothing happened. I asked my mom if she wanted coffee. I asked my dad if he needed help carrying something to the garage. I smiled until my cheeks hurt, and while I played the good daughter, I watched. My sister stayed in her room most of the morning. When she finally came downstairs, her eyes were puffy, but her mouth was set like she'd already decided she was the one who'd been wronged. She didn't look at me. She didn't have to. She knew my parents were watching me now, measuring my face for guilt. My mom tried to speak gently. We need to talk about school. My sister let out this tired little laugh, like my mom was being unreasonable. I told you, it's complicated. My dad's jaw clenched. Complicated isn't an answer. My sister's eyes flicked to me for half a second. It was the kind of look that said, stay in your lane. Let me handle this. And then she did something that made my stomach flip. She sighed and said, I didn't want to tell you this, but I asked her for help. She knew. She told you, and now you're acting like I betrayed you. Her finger lifted slightly, not pointing at me directly, but close enough that it felt like a spotlight. My mom turned to me. Waverly? My heart beat once hard. I could have exploded right there. I could have thrown the laptop on the table and screamed, that's a lie. But screaming would make me look guilty. It would make me look emotional. It would make me look like the unstable one, so I stayed quiet. I let the silence stretch just long enough to feel uncomfortable. Then I said softly, I knew she wasn't enrolled. I didn't know where the money went. My sister's eyes widened for a fraction of a second, just a crack in her mask. My dad's voice went low. What money? My sister answered fast, too fast. There was no money. She's twisting it. You see what she does? She always needs to be right. My mom looked torn. She wanted to believe the child standing in front of her. She also wanted the truth. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I didn't even look at my sister. I looked at my dad and said, can I show you something later when you're alone? My sister inhaled sharply. My mom noticed it. My dad noticed it. He nodded once. After lunch, my office. My sister's voice turned sweet again. Dad, you don't have to entertain this. You didn't answer her. And that tiny moment, that tiny refusal, felt like the first breath of air I'd had in days. Upstairs, I locked my bedroom door and reopened my laptop. My hands were steady now. Not because I wasn't scared, because fear had finally turned into something clearer. Decision. I downloaded every email about tuition and withdrawal. I pulled the refund notice again. I took screenshots of the account routing information. I saved the browser history that showed someone had logged in late at night on the family computer, not from my parents' phones. Then I dug deeper, because if my sister had been clever enough to move money, she'd been clever enough to cover tracks. I checked my parents' checking account activity, the one my mom used to pay bills. There was a transfer labeled for school that matched the timeline. Then days later, a deposit came back smaller than the amount they paid, as if fees had been taken out. But the refund email said the full amount was issued. That didn't match. My stomach sank again. A refund had been issued, but my parents only got part of it. The rest had been redirected. And the name attached to that redirect was my uncle, my dad's brother, the man who always hugged too tight and talked too loud and liked to remind everyone he handled the financial stuff for the family whenever he could. I sat there staring at the numbers spelled out in my head like a chant, trying to understand how a person could steal from their own brother and still show up for Sunday dinner smiling. Then I remembered something small, something stupid. A few weeks earlier, at a family gathering, my uncle had slapped my sister's shoulder and said, "You're gonna be just fine. I got you." At the time, I thought he was just being dramatic, like he always was. Now it sounded like a promise. By the time my dad called me into his office, I had everything organized. Not in a messy pile, not in a way that looked panicked, in a folder. Labeled, clean, quiet, professional. My dad sat behind his desk, his reading glasses on. He looked tired, older, like someone had pulled a rug out from under him and he was still trying to stand. I put my laptop down in front of him. I didn't say she's lying. I didn't say you failed as parents. I said, I want you to look at this and tell me what you think it means. His eyes narrowed as he read. His mouth tightened. His fingers went still on the edge of the desk. For a long time, he didn't speak. When he finally did, his voice sounded like gravel. This account. This isn't ours. I shook my head. No. And this name. He swallowed hard. This is my brother. I didn't add anything. I didn't need to. My dad leaned back, staring at the ceiling as if the answer might be written there. Then he stood, slow, controlled. He walked to the door and opened it just enough to call my mom's name. My mom came in, eyes anxious. What is it? My dad didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam anything. He just turned the laptop screen toward her and said, "Read." My mom's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes darted from the screen to my face. Waverly? I felt the sting of it. That hesitation. That tiny question behind her eyes. Are you sure? I nodded once. It's all there. I didn't change anything. My mom's face crumpled. Not in anger, but in grief. Why would he do that? My dad's jaw worked like he was chewing on something bitter, because he could. My mom turned toward the door. We need to talk to her. I spoke quickly. Not yet. They both looked at me. I surprised myself by staying calm. If you confront her now, she'll cry. She'll deny. She'll blame me. She'll make it about feelings. And he'll find out we know. They'll get ahead of it. My dad stared at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Respect, maybe? Or shock that his quiet daughter had a spine. I continued, careful. If you want the truth, let them talk themselves into it. Ask questions. Simple ones. Let them answer. Then show proof. My mom's voice trembled. That feels cruel. I thought of my sister's eyes when she tried to throw me under the bus. I thought of her telling our mother she didn't care how uncomfortable I felt. I thought of my uncle's grin at dinner. It's not cruel, I said softly. It's clean. My dad exhaled. What are you suggesting? I swallowed. My heart hammered, but my voice stayed steady. Invite him over today. Tell him you want advice. Act normal. My mom looked horrified. Your uncle? My dad's mouth twisted. He'll come. He loves feeling important. I nodded. And ask my sister to join, not because she deserves it, because if she's involved, she'll try to protect him or herself, and she'll slip. My dad's eyes hardened. If this is true, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. My mom whispered. And if it isn't? I met her gaze. Then I'll apologize and I'll take whatever comes. But I'm not wrong. My dad walked out of the office and picked up his phone. He didn't call my uncle. He texted him. Casual, friendly, a simple invitation. When my uncle replied within minutes, "Of course we can. Happy to help." My dad showed me the screen without a word. His expression said everything. My sister came downstairs later, already acting like she'd won. She was wearing makeup, like she was going to walk into a courtroom and charm the jury. My mom told her our uncle was coming over to help figure out the school situation. My sister's smile faltered for half a second. Then she recovered. That's great. He's always supported me. Supported. That word sat in my chest like a stone. I didn't look at her. I just kept setting the table, placing napkins neatly, like this was any other family moment, because my revenge wasn't loud. It was letting the truth walk into the room on its own legs. My uncle arrived just after the afternoon light turned gold, carrying a bakery box like he was bringing peace instead of trouble. He walked in loud, smiling, acting like the kind of man who could fix anything with a few jokes, and a firm handshake. My dad greeted him with the same calm voice he used with difficult patients when he volunteered at the clinic. My mom offered coffee with a trembling smile. My sister sat on the couch with her ankles crossed, looking almost proud like she had called in reinforcements. I stayed in the kitchen doorway, holding my phone loosely, screen dark, heart steady. Not because I wasn't scared, because I was done being scared. My uncle started talking before he even sat down. He said school is complicated these days. He said kids are under so much pressure. He said he's been trying to guide my sister because he knows our parents can be harsh. My mom blinked like she'd been slapped. Harsh. The word landed heavy because it suggested my parents were the villains and my uncle was the rescuer. My dad nodded politely and said he just wants clarity. Nothing else. Just clarity. My uncle smiled wider, like clarity was easy. My dad asked simple questions, one at a time, with long, quiet pauses afterward. What What date did she withdraw? Who did she speak to? Where did the refund go? How much was refunded? My sister answered for my uncle at first, too fast, filling every silence like she couldn't stand the air. My uncle kept placing a hand on her shoulder, gentle, guiding like she was a child. Then my dad asked in the same calm voice where the refund went. My uncle's smile slipped for the first time. Not much, just enough. He said, I don't know what you mean. Refunds go back to the payer. My dad nodded once, as if he agreed, and said that makes sense. My mom exhaled like she was relieved. I watched my sister's face. She kept her expression neutral, but her eyes flicked to the hallway like she was looking for an escape. My dad leaned forward slightly and said he would like to show something, just to confirm they were all talking about the same thing. He turned his laptop around on the coffee table. My uncle's eyes dropped to the screen. I saw it happen in real time. The moment his brain recognized what he was looking at, a flash of anger quickly smoothed into confusion. He forced a laugh and said, this could be a scam email. Anyone can fake these. My dad nodded again, still calm, and said he thought about that. So he called the school this morning, not to accuse anyone, just to ask how the process works. My uncle's throat moved when he swallowed. My sister sat up straighter, her fingers curled into the couch cushion, gripping it like she needed something to hold. My mom whispered, you called the school. My dad didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on my uncle and said yes. He said the school confirmed the refund was processed. He said they confirmed the routing information. He said they confirmed the name associated with the deposit account. He paused, then spoke the name out loud. My uncle's name. My mom made a small sound like a breath caught behind her teeth. My sister's face went pale. For a second, she looked like she might cry. Then she snapped her gaze toward me, sharp and accusing, like she could still redirect the fire. She said she did this. She's trying to ruin me. My uncle grabbed onto that instantly. He pointed at me and said, exactly. She's always been jealous. She's always wanted you to hate me. She's twisting things. My dad didn't react. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look offended. He just asked one small question. If it's fake, why did you just say my daughter is jealous of you instead of asking why your bank information is on it? Silence fell so hard it felt physical. My uncle opened his mouth, closed it, then laughed again, but it sounded wrong. He said maybe someone stole his identity. Maybe someone used his name. My mom's eyes were wet now. She kept staring at him like her brain couldn't accept that this was the same man who brought her flowers on her birthday and fixed her porch steps. My sister suddenly stood up and said she can explain. She said she was scared. She said she didn't want to disappoint them. She said our uncle offered to help and she thought it was a loan. She said she didn't know anything about accounts or refunds. She said she's being blamed for something she didn't understand. And there it was. Her news story. Smooth, emotional, carefully built to sound innocent. I didn't interrupt. I just walked into the room and placed a folder on the coffee table. My sister's eyes widened. My uncle's face tightened. My mom whispered, what is that? I said it's the timeline. I said it's the screenshots. I said it's the login history from the family computer showing the account was accessed late at night while my parents were asleep. I said it includes the email from the registrar confirming the withdrawal. I said it includes the refund notice. I said it includes the bank statement showing only part of the refund returned to my parents. And I said it includes the transfer from the refund account to a second account labeled with my sister's initials. My sister's mouth fell open. She looked at my uncle like she wanted him to save her. He didn't, because he was trapped now too. My dad asked quietly where that second account came from. My sister started shaking her head fast. She said she doesn't know. She said she didn't do that. She said she never had access. My dad nodded, still calm, and said he had one more thing. He held up his phone. He said after our earlier talk, he changed the password on the family email. He said he didn't tell anyone. He said he also enabled security alerts. He said last night, an alert came through that someone tried to reset the password using my sister's phone number as the recovery option. My sister froze. My mom's face shifted. Not anger at first, just something breaking, slowly, painfully, like glass under pressure. My sister's voice turned small. She said, I only did that because I was panicking. My dad asked, why is your phone number attached to our recovery settings? My sister looked at me again, desperate now, and said, because she helped me. She set it up. I let her finish. Then I said, I didn't even know the password until this morning. I said, the hospital taught me something. If you can't prove it, it didn't happen. I said, I never touched your phone, but you touched theirs. My uncle finally snapped. He leaned forward, anger bleeding through his mask. He said my dad was overreacting. He said families handle things privately. He said my dad shouldn't ruin his life over a misunderstanding. My dad stared at him for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was still low, but it wasn't soft anymore. He said, you ruined your own life when you took money from my house and tried to make my daughters fight over it. My mom started crying then, quietly, like she was trying not to give anyone the satisfaction of loud grief. My sister began crying too, but it sounded different. It sounded like fear of consequences. My dad didn't comfort her. He didn't scream at her either. He just stood up and said he was going to do the next right thing, whether anyone liked it or not. He said he was calling the school's fraud office first to officially report the redirect. He said he was calling the bank to freeze any linked transfers. He said he was filing a police report because the refund was not a family argument. It was theft. My uncle stood up fast, knocking his knee against the table. He said, you can't do that. He said, I'm your brother. My dad said, and you were my brother when you did it. My sister sobbed and said, please don't. I'll pay it back. My mom wiped her face and asked, where is it? My sister hesitated, just a second too long. I watched my uncle's face at the same time. He looked angry at her. Not sad angry. My sister whispered, it's gone. My mom's eyes widened. Gone. My sister said she thought she could replace it before anyone noticed. She said she used some of it to cover rent for a place she was secretly planning to move into. She said she used some to pay off a credit card she couldn't keep hidden anymore. She said our uncle told her it was fine because he had a system. He said he would handle it. She said she believed him because he sounded confident and because he promised he could keep our parents from finding out. My uncle exploded then, not at my parents, but at my sister. He accused her of being careless. He accused her of messing up the plan. He said he told her not to touch certain transfers. He said she never listens. And that was the second twist, the one that made everything clear. He stopped defending himself. He started blaming her like a partner caught in a crime. My dad's eyes narrowed. He said plan. My uncle went still. My sister looked at the floor, and in that moment, I saw her for what she was. Not a frightened kid, not a helpless girl. A person who made choices and expected other people to absorb the fallout. My dad said he wanted them both out of the house for the night. He said my sister could stay with a friend. He said my uncle needed to leave immediately. My uncle tried one last move. He turned toward my mom and said, "You know me. You know I would never hurt you." My mom's voice shook, but it was firm. She said, "You didn't just hurt me. You used my child as a shield." My uncle left without the bakery box. My sister lingered at the door, red-eyed, watching my parents like she was waiting for them to soften. They didn't. She finally looked at me. Her voice was flat. She said, "Happy now." I could have said 100 things. I could have told her she destroyed my trust. I could have told her she taught me how easy it is for her to lie. I could have asked her how she slept at night. Instead, I said, "You wanted me to stick to your story. I just chose the one with receipts." She left. The next days were slow and heavy. Calls, paperwork, meetings. My dad spoke to the school and the bank. The fraud office took it seriously because the redirect was documented. The bank flagged the accounts and opened an investigation. My uncle started calling nonstop. My dad didn't answer. My sister sent messages that bounced between apology and blame. My mom didn't answer. My dad didn't answer. I didn't answer. A week later, my uncle showed up again. Not at our house, but at my job. He waited near the admissions desk like he belonged there, smiling at strangers, trying to look harmless. He said he just wanted to talk. I looked at him and felt nothing but a cold clarity. I said I couldn't. I said if he needed to communicate, he could do it through the report number and the investigator assigned. I said it calmly with my work voice, the one that doesn't shake. His smile vanished. He leaned in and hissed that I was ruining the family. I leaned in too, just enough, and said, "No, you did. I'm just not cleaning it up for you anymore." He walked away fast because people were looking. A month later, my parents sat my sister down with a counselor, not to excuse her, to set boundaries and consequences. She had to get a job. She had to start repaying what she could. She had to rebuild trust one small action at a time if she wanted any relationship with them. My parents didn't throw her away, but they stopped protecting her from the truth. And my dad did something I didn't expect. He apologized to me. He said he was sorry he didn't realize earlier how much pressure I carried. He said he was sorry he ever let anyone treat my honesty like it was optional. He said he was proud of me for staying calm when it mattered. I nodded because if I spoke, I would have cried. Then the final twist came, quiet and clean, like the kind of ending life gives you when you stop begging it for mercy. The investigator called my dad and told him the account my uncle used was not just in his name. It was joint with my sister. My sister had been tied to it the whole time. Not as a victim, but as a co-owner. When my mom heard that, she didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She just sat down at the kitchen table and stared at her hands. Then she looked up at me and said, "I kept asking myself where I went wrong." I took her hand and said, "You didn't raise a monster. You raised a girl who thought secrets were easier than consequences. Now she's learning consequences." My mom squeezed my fingers, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like the reliable one wasn't alone. My sister still barely speaks to me. My uncle no longer comes to Sunday dinner. The house feels quieter, cleaner, like a storm finally passed and left space behind. And when people ask me if I regret it, I tell them the truth. I didn't expose them. I just stopped lying so they could keep stealing in peace.